At my sister Chloe's engagement lunch, everyone clapped like they were watching the royal family announce a new heir. Then she turned to me, her older sister, her lifelong backdrop, and said I could be her bridesmaid if I lost 30 pounds. The whole table laughed, including my mother, who spent my entire childhood posing Chloe front and center and pushing me slightly behind her for better angles. My dad stared at his phone. Chloe smirked like she'd been waiting years to say it out loud. But what none of them knew, not Chloe, not my mother, not even the man she was about to marry, was that their little ultimatum wouldn't just break me. It would expose everything they'd spent years trying to hide. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you. Because what happened after that lunch in Eugene, it didn't just change my body. It cracked open every lie my family had taught me about love, loyalty, and what it means to belong. I didn't grow up in a cruel family. At least, that's what I told myself for most of my life. Cruelty was loud, obvious, sharp like broken glass. What I grew up with was softer, polished, wrapped in silk ribbons, and served with Sunday roast. The kind of cruelty you don't notice until you're bleeding from 1,000 tiny cuts. When I think back, the earliest wound came from the dining table in our old house in Eugene. A long walnut table my mother polished every morning, even if no one was coming over. The smell of lemon oil would fill the room, mixing with the roasted chicken she made every Sunday. I must have been 8 when I realized that every plate she served told a story, and mine always said the same thing. Chloe sat on her booster seat, swinging her legs, hair in perfect curls. Mom piled mashed potatoes on her plate, then the dark meat she liked. She always asked, "Baby, want more?" When she turned to me, her voice shifted. Soft, but measured. "Nat, let's keep it light tonight. You don't want to feel sluggish for school tomorrow." Sluggish, heavy, slow. Words I didn't fully understand then, but I swallowed them anyway along with my smaller serving of potatoes. I didn't know it then, but this would matter later. Years passed, and I learned how to make myself quiet at that table, how to cross my arms in front of my stomach, how to take photos from angles that hid me behind Chloe. Every family photo had the same choreography: Chloe in the front, chin lifted, smiling like she belonged on a greeting card, and me, hovering somewhere in her orbit, trying not to take up too much space. In high school, the pattern sharpened. I remember the exact moment it became undeniable. I had just been handed a certificate for ranking first in my AP economics class. I rushed home, clutching it like a fragile miracle. Mom was arranging flowers in the kitchen, a bouquet of white lilies she ordered every Thursday. "Mom," I said, breathless, "I got top score." My teacher said. She looked at the certificate, nodded once, and said, "That's nice, honey, but you really should think about losing maybe 20 pounds. People won't take you seriously if they think you're undisciplined." Undisciplined. I was studying 3 hours a night, babysitting to earn extra cash, tutoring 2 kids in algebra. But all she saw was the body carrying all that effort. Chloe wandered in wearing my favorite sweater. I had begged Mom to let me buy it, but she said it made me look puffy. On Chloe, though, it somehow looked delicate. Pretty. Perfect. "Oh, sweetheart," Mom breathed. "You look gorgeous." And just like that, my certificate might as well have been scrap paper. I swallowed the ache, but it carved deeper than I realized. Prom came. Girls at school talked nonstop about dresses and dates. I'd saved for months to buy a dress I loved: burgundy satin, modest neckline, soft flow. I showed it to Mom, and she pulled me into her bathroom like we were planning a secret mission. "If you want this to look good," she said, pulling out a diet pamphlet, "you need to do a liquid diet for 3 weeks. Trust me, Nat, you'll thank me later." 3 weeks of liquid diet. While Chloe tried on dress after dress in the next room, Mom tearing up like this was her coronation. I watched through the mirror as they twirled together, their laughter bouncing down the hall. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment something inside me stopped expecting my mother to choose me. College should have been freedom, and in some ways, it was. I majored in economics and soaked up everything. For the first time, I felt like I had a world that existed outside Eugene and the Harper household. My peers respected me. Professors praised me. I thrived. But then I'd call home. "Mom, I got a 97 on my econometrics midterm." I'd say, nearly jumping with excitement. "Did you gain the freshman 15 yet?" She'd reply. "Or are you losing weight?" Your cousin Jenna lost 10 pounds already. And just like that, whatever pride I had evaporated into shame before I even understood why. One memory stands out more than the rest. Dad's auto shop, the one he'd run since before I was born, was on the brink of fines because of a bookkeeping mess. He was stressed, snapping at customers, dropping wrenches, forgetting appointments. I took a bus home that weekend, sat with him for hours, and cleaned every ledger, every tax form, every invoice. I found an error that was costing him thousands. I helped him negotiate with the bank. Dad cried. Actual tears. He hugged me and whispered, "I don't know what I'd do without you, kiddo." But the next week, Aunt Martha called to congratulate Chloe for bringing in new customers with her marketing connections. My mother had rewritten the story overnight. I swallowed that too. I didn't know it then, but every one of these small erasures was chiseling me into the woman I'd become. When I finally left Eugene after graduation, I remember standing in the driveway with my suitcases. Mom gave me a stiff hug and said, "Seattle's expensive. Don't let yourself go. People judge." That was her goodbye. I moved anyway. Built a life. Worked hard. Got promoted. Built a minimalist apartment with clean lines, warm lamps, shelves full of finance textbooks and awards. It was the first space in my life where I didn't feel watched. But the truth is, even in Seattle, the ghosts of Eugene lived in my head. I kept a journal. Every time something hurt, I wrote it down. Every voicemail, every comment, every just teasing. Like I was gathering evidence for a trial I didn't know I was preparing for. I didn't know it then, but that trial was coming sooner than I expected. Seattle gave me space, but space doesn't erase history. If anything, distance sharpens it. The farther I got from Eugene, the more I could finally hear my own thoughts, instead of my mother's voice echoing in them. I built routines. I woke early, made coffee in my tiny kitchen, watched the gray Seattle sky shift from fog to pale morning light. On good days, I took long walks along Lake Union. On bad days, I buried myself in spreadsheets until the world felt quiet again. My coworkers respected me. My boss valued me. For the first time, my worth wasn't measured by a scale or a dress size. But even there, in the life I built, the Harper family mythology tried to seep in. It started small. A text from Mom. "Saw Chloe today. She's glowing. When are you coming home?" Or a call from Dad, where he'd talk about the shop, then whisper, "You know your mom means well." Then came the day I opened my laptop and found an older folder labeled Family Photos. I hadn't touched it in years. Maybe curiosity got the best of me. Maybe I wanted to see if memory had exaggerated things. But once I clicked, the truth slapped me in the face. Photo after photo. Holiday parties. Birthdays. Sunday brunches. Group pictures. In every single one, Chloe was front and center like the star of a homegrown magazine cover. And me? Standing slightly behind, half hidden. Sometimes Mom's hand would be on Chloe's waist. Sometimes Chloe would lean forward, beaming. And me? In the shadows of a girl 5 inches shorter, but infinitely more visible. One picture from Christmas stood out. Chloe, holding her gift, a designer purse. Mom was hugging her, her eyes sparkling. Dad was laughing in the background. And me? In the corner, holding a plain sweater still half wrapped, smiling like I wasn't the afterthought I clearly was. I stared at that photo for a long time. My throat tightened. My hands trembled. I thought about the last Christmas I spent with them, 3 years earlier. Chloe had arrived in a cream sweater dress. Mom squealed, "My gorgeous girl." Then I walked in, and my mother's first words were, "Nat, honey, that color washes you out." I didn't know it then, but that memory would snap into place like a puzzle piece when Chloe delivered her ultimatum months later. Seattle didn't erase the pain. It preserved it. Still, I tried to live outside of it. Work helped. I bonded with Marcus from accounting, loud laugh, loud ties, but a surprisingly gentle heart. Lily, sharp and quick-witted, taught me how to navigate office politics without losing myself. Kayla, just a few years younger, looked up to me as if I had everything figured out. On days I mentored her, I felt strangely like the oldest sister I never got to be. Once, during a late-night deadline, Lily turned to me and said, "You're one of the most grounded people here, Nat. I don't know how you do it." I almost laughed. If only she knew how much of that grounding was just masking old wounds. Then came the weekend that set everything in motion. Chloe invited me home for a family check-in, which sounded harmless. I drove down I-5, listening to podcasts, sipping burnt coffee from a gas station, convincing myself things would be different. But even before I arrived, the signs appeared. Mom texting. Chloe wants to talk wedding plans. Make sure you look presentable. Chloe texting. Grab a salad before you come. Mom is making pasta. That familiar weight settled in my chest. Yet, I still walked through that door. Still stepped into the polished dining room with the crystal glasses and perfect silverware. Still sat in the same chair I'd sat in for 2 decades. And that's where the real flashback surfaced, not a memory, but a realization. Every time I returned to Eugene, I shrank. My body stiffened, my voice softened. My spine curled inward as if the walls themselves whispered, "Stay in your place." That night, when I drove back to Seattle, tears blurred my vision so badly I had to pull over. I felt pathetic, weak. How could a grown woman crumble like this? But the truth was simpler. No matter how far I'd gone, my family still had their hands around my self-worth. I didn't know it then, but the next 6 months would tear that grip loose inch by inch, wound by wound, until I finally became someone they could no longer control. And it all started with one sentence Chloe threw at me across that dining table. The 6 months that followed Chloe's ultimatum unfolded like a slow-motion dismantling of every illusion I had left about my family. I used to think toxicity came in explosions, screaming matches, slammed doors, dramatic betrayals, but ours was a quieter poison. It seeped, it stained, it spread under the skin. It started the night I returned to Seattle after the engagement lunch. The highway blurred behind my tears, the humming of the engine drowning out the echo of Chloe's voice. "You'll be my bridesmaid, but only if you lose 30 pounds. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. By the time I reached my apartment, the city lights felt harsher than usual. I dropped my bag on the floor and collapsed onto the couch. The silence of my home wrapped around me, too gentle compared to the sharpness of what I had just come from. 30 pounds. 30. Like my worth was a number she could assign, reduce, erase. The next morning, I woke with swollen eyes and a throat raw from crying. My phone buzzed with 2 new messages. "Mom, remember, darling, June weddings photograph terribly when bridesmaids look mismatched. Chloe, just start now. It'll be fine. Also, Mom and I found dresses. They run small." I stared at the texts for a long time. Something inside me cracked, not a dramatic shatter, but a thin, precise fracture. That afternoon, I called a doctor I hadn't seen in 2 years. "I need a full physical," I told the receptionist. "And a recommendation for a trainer." The universe must have decided I deserved a lifeline, because that's how I met Maya Price. Maya was everything my family wasn't. Warm without being overbearing, encouraging without judgment, and firm in a way that made me feel safe. She stood barely 5'3" but radiated confidence like a street lamp in fog. "You're not here for weight loss," she said during our first session, her tone matter of fact. "You're here for strength, and that's going to change more than your body." I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until my throat tightened. Our workouts were brutal at first. Squats made my legs shake uncontrollably. Deadlifts felt like punishment. Cardio was war. But after every session, Maya would say something that kept me coming back. "You're stronger than you think. Your body's not the enemy. You deserve to take up space." No one in my family had ever used the word deserve with me unless it was followed by to lose weight. For a month, everything went smoothly. I lost 8 pounds, then 12. I slept better. My mind felt clearer, less like a battlefield. Coworkers complimented my energy. Lily said, "There's something different about you." And for the first time, the difference wasn't something I wanted to hide. But peace never lasts long when your family thrives on disturbance. The first blow came in a padded envelope. Inside was a professionally printed countdown calendar, Natalie's wedding goal timeline. The dates were highlighted in pastel pink. Little notes scribbled in Mom's neat handwriting. 3 months left, don't fall behind. Final fitting, be ready. Photographer booked, please be mindful of posture. Mindful of posture. I stood in my kitchen and laughed. A short, empty sound that echoed too loudly in the room. I taped the calendar to my fridge. Not because I wanted the reminders, but because I wanted to confront the absurdity every time I grabbed oat milk or vegetables. I would turn their weapon into fuel. But the escalation didn't stop. Next came the group chat Harper family wedding. I never agreed to join, but one day I woke up to 147 unread messages. They were all from Mom and Chloe. Photos of bridesmaid dresses, mirrors of Chloe in different white gowns, mood boards, venue shots, cake samples. And then the sting. Nat, share your current measurements. The dressmaker needs to know how far you've come. How far I'd come. Not how far the wedding had come. Not how far life had come. Just the distance between me and a number Chloe had assigned. I didn't respond. I didn't leave the chat either. I simply read every message, screenshot anything cruel, and filed it into evidence. The folder I'd started for reasons I didn't quite understand. Maybe I needed to see the harm in black and white. Maybe I needed proof that pain wasn't something I imagined. A week later, the messages became more aggressive. Mom, please tell me you're on track. Size 6 dresses have limited availability. Chloe, we'll put you in the back row for photos if you're not ready. No hard feelings. Back row. As if that wasn't where I'd spent my entire life. I ignored them. Then came the plateau. For 10 days straight, the scale refused to move. 22 pounds gone, and stuck. The same number glared at me every morning like a taunt. You're not enough. You'll never be enough. Why even try? The timing couldn't have been worse. 3 voice messages from Mom asking for updates because responsible bridesmaids don't procrastinate, and 3 photos from Chloe in a coral dress that she claimed would pop beautifully next to a slimmer you. I snapped. I drove straight to the nearest fast food place, bought a large pizza, extra fries, and a chocolate shake. I placed everything on my coffee table like a ritual offering to failure. The smell was intoxicating grease, warmth, salt, all the comforts of childhood I never got to experience without guilt. I picked up a slice. Cheese stretched. Steam rose. My stomach growled. Then I turned on the TV to drown out my thoughts. A documentary flickered onto the screen. A therapist was explaining how families use shame to control behavior. The phrase, toxic body narratives, cut through the room like lightning. I froze. The pizza hovered inches from my mouth. The camera panned over a pile of running shoes someone had abandoned. Mine sitting by my front door caught my eye. And something shifted. These people weren't helping me. They were still trying to own me. I dropped the slice, stood up, opened the trash can, and threw every piece of food away. Then I pulled on my shoes, stepped out into the night, and ran. Ran until my lungs burned. Ran until every cruel comment blurred behind me. Ran until I felt something break free inside my chest. This wasn't about a dress or a wedding or Chloe's vanity. This journey was mine, and I wasn't giving it back. The night I ran through Cal Anderson Park, rain starting to mist against my skin, something in me shifted permanently. It wasn't dramatic, no epiphany screamed into the sky. It was quieter, steadier, a decision made in the dark, between breaths. This isn't their journey. This is mine. The next morning, my legs were sore, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. I walked into the gym, drenched in determination, and Maya picked up on it instantly. You look different, she said, adjusting a barbell. Rough night? Clarifying night, I answered. She nodded like she already knew. Trainers can sense emotional earthquakes before you say a word. The next weeks were transformative, not just physically, but mentally. We added weight to every lift. I learned how to brace my core, how to breathe through strain, how to push without punishing myself. For the first time in my life, movement wasn't tied to shame. It was tied to power. By the end of month 3, I had lost 28 pounds, too shy of Chloe's demand. But I didn't care. Not anymore. That's when Evelyn decided to escalate. One Wednesday morning, while I was getting ready for work, my phone started buzzing relentlessly. 10 missed calls in 20 minutes. When I finally checked, I found a video call request from Mom and Chloe. I should have ignored it. But I answered. Their faces filled my screen, 2 perfectly curated blondes, framed by immaculate lighting. There you are, Mom said, without a greeting. We need to do a quick weigh-in. The dressmaker needs final numbers. My heart lurched. No. Nat, Chloe snapped. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Mom added. Just step on the scale. We can see you. The old Natalie would have obeyed. Would have swallowed humiliation like medicine. But not this version. My body is not a public spreadsheet, I said quietly. Mom blinked, as if she'd never heard me speak English before. Excuse me? You heard me. Chloe rolled her eyes. God, why are you being so dramatic? Dramatic? That word again. I ended the call. 2 minutes later, Mom sent a text. This is unacceptable. 5 minutes after, Chloe added, if you don't cooperate, we'll find another bridesmaid. I typed a response, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted. Finally, I wrote, do what you need to do. Then muted the chat. Strangely, I felt lighter than I had in years. But the escalation wasn't finished. The next weekend, Dad called. His voice was low, tired, like he'd been coached before dialing. Nat, your mom's upset, he murmured. Maybe just send her what she wants. For peace. For peace? I asked. He hesitated. You know how she gets during events. Dad, I said gently, this isn't about a dress. This is about control. Silence. For a moment, I thought he'd defend me. I desperately wanted him to. But he exhaled softly and said, maybe just think about it. That hurt more than any insult Chloe had ever thrown. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at a crack in the ceiling. The realization hit with a dull ache. My father would never choose me if it meant confronting my mother. The universe must have sensed I needed something to hold on to. Because that week, I hit a milestone. I deadlifted my body weight for the first time. When the bar touched the ground, I felt tears sting my eyes. Nat, Maya said, her voice warm, you just lifted more than decades of their expectations. I laughed an involuntary, watery laugh. God, don't make me cry. Cry, she said. Earn it. I did. But the emotional victories didn't stop the attacks. One night, as I cooked dinner, my doorbell rang. A package sat on my doorstep, a garment bag with a note pinned to it. Try this on. We need to know how far you have left to go. Mom. Inside was a size 6 coral bridesmaid dress. 6. They hadn't even asked. They just assumed they could choose my body for me. I stood there, fabric bunched in my fists, and felt a cold wave wash over me. They didn't see me. They saw a prop. I hung the dress on a chair, stared at it for a long time, then took a photo and dragged it into the evidence folder. 2 weeks later, Chloe added insult to injury. She texted me at 2:14 a.m. If you're coming to the wedding, you have to dye your hair back. I'm the blonde one. Don't confuse people. I stared at the message in disbelief. My new hair was the first thing I had done purely for myself. It symbolized freedom, rebirth. Of course, she wanted it gone. The next morning, instead of replying, I went to the salon and cut it even shorter. Ash blonde, sharp edges, clean lines. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the girl my family tried to control. I saw me, fully. But Evelyn and Chloe weren't done. 3 months before the wedding, they scheduled a pre-wedding lunch and demanded I attend. It's important, Mom insisted. Non-negotiable, Chloe added. I went. But I didn't go as the Natalie they knew. I walked into my closet, pulled out a navy dress that hugged my waist and shoulders perfectly, slipped on black heels, and grabbed a blazer that made me feel like a CEO walking into a hostile board meeting. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, I whispered, this time, you walk in as the woman you became, not the girl they left behind. And with that, I drove to Eugene. What happened in that dining room would become the breaking point of everything we pretended was a family. And none of them saw it coming. The Harper dining room looked exactly the same as it had my entire childhood: polished walnut table, crystal glasses, soft golden light spilling from the chandelier like honey. But as I stepped into the doorway, heels clicking against the hardwood, everything felt different. Because I was different. I saw it hit them in waves. Dad froze first. He stood by the doorway with a dish towel in hand, as if he'd been pretending to help until the moment I arrived. His eyes widened behind his glasses. Nat, he whispered, almost afraid to say my name. Before I could answer, Mom appeared behind him, arranging a platter of roasted carrots as if she were hosting a magazine photo shoot. When she looked up, the dish nearly slipped from her hands. Oh, she said, just one syllable, sharp and clipped, like I'd inconvenienced her by existing in a new shape. Chloe was the last to react. She sat at the table beside Ethan, mid-laugh, a perfect snapshot of curated joy. But the laughter died instantly when she saw me. Her lips parted. Her smile collapsed. Her eyes narrowed, scanning every inch of me from the ash blonde hair, to the fitted navy dress, to the heels she used to mock me for never wearing. For the first time in our lives, Chloe looked small next to me. Ethan rose from his seat slowly, jaw slack. Wow, he murmured. Natalie, you look. Chloe shot him a glare so fierce, he snapped his mouth shut. I pulled out my chair with a calmness I didn't feel, but desperately wanted them to see. Don't let me interrupt, I said softly. Go on. Mom recovered first, stepping into her familiar role. Well, she started, smoothing her blouse. This is unexpected. There it was. The first strike. I smiled politely. Unexpected usually means I don't approve in Harper language, doesn't it? Chloe snorted. God, Nat, you didn't have to go full makeover. You look like, I don't know, someone trying way too hard. This from the woman who brushed her hair 30 minutes before video calls. Mom leaned closer to me, fingers brushing my hair. Sweetheart, you should dye this back to brown. The blonde washes you out, and Chloe is the blonde in this family. There it was. Strike two. The old hierarchy. I gently moved her hand away. I like my hair, I said. Luckily, it's on my head. Across the table, Ethan hid a smile behind his glass. Mom stiffened. There's no need for attitude. No attitude, I said. Just boundaries. Dad sank into his chair, already defeated by the tension. Chloe twisted her napkin in her hands, face tightening. So, she said, loud and theatrical, you did lose the weight. How much? 20? 25? 48, I answered. Calm, direct. The truth hit harder than I expected. Chloe's mouth fell open. 48? That's weight. Did you get surgery? Be honest. She leaned forward, scrutinizing me with the precision of someone searching for flaws. Surgery would explain it. No surgery, I said. Just work. And peace. Mom scoffed. Well, you didn't have to go that far. Now the bridesmaid dresses will look ridiculous on you. The style is designed for softer figures. Softer, as in bigger, as in the body they were comfortable seeing me in. I picked up my water glass, studying the way light refracted in the crystals. You know, I said, when I started this journey, I thought your approval would feel like a reward. The air thinned. Everyone went still. But today, I continued, I realized something. You're not capable of being proud of me unless it benefits you. Mom tensed. Chloe glared daggers. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Nat, Mom warned, don't start. Take time. I'm not starting, I said. I'm finishing. Chloe slammed her hand on the table. God, you're acting like we're villains. All we ever did was try to help you. Help? My voice stayed level, almost too calm. You told me to starve myself for prom. You told me losing weight mattered more than getting top marks. You told me to hide behind Chloe in every photo. You told me who to be, how to shrink, how to disappear. Mom's face blanched. Ethan turned toward me slowly, as if hearing these words for the first time. Dad looked down at his plate. And when Chloe told me to lose 30 pounds to earn a place in her wedding, I said, you laughed. You all laughed. Chloe scoffed. It was just a joke. No, I said, locking eyes with her. It was the blueprint. The same rules you've lived by your whole life. You shine, I dim. A beat of silence. Then Ethan spoke. Natalie. I didn't know. Chloe whipped toward him. Don't take her side. He didn't answer. That alone was an answer. Mom straightened her shoulders, rallying for one final blow. You have always been dramatic, Natalie. Maybe if you focused more on family and less on physical vanity. Physical vanity? I echoed. You're the one who passed out calendars tracking my weight. You're the one who told me the bridesmaid dress was an emergency. You're the one who said I would ruin Chloe's photos. She opened her mouth, but I continued before she could revise history. The heaviest thing I ever carried, I said quietly, was your expectations. A tremor passed through the room, like a chandelier swaying from a distant earthquake. When I stood, the chair scraped the hardwood with a soft hiss. I'm done being your backdrop, I said. Your prop. Your proof of perfection. I'm done shrinking so Chloe can feel taller. Chloe looked stunned, not angry, but scared. A kind of fear I'd never seen in her. Mom's face hardened like stone. Dad finally looked up, eyes glossy. Nat, he whispered, don't leave like this. I put my napkin down gently. I'm not leaving. I'm just done. As I walked toward the door, I felt every gaze follow me. Shock, jealousy, fear. Something like respect from Ethan, at least. At the doorway, I turned back one last time. I'll see you at the wedding, I said softly. And then, with a colder smile than I'd ever worn in that house, added, but not the way you expect. The room froze, and I walked out, heels echoing like a promise. I drove back to Seattle that same night, the highway stretching ahead like a long, unbroken exhale. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. I didn't rehearse imaginary apologies or wonder how to soften my edges to make them more comfortable. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I didn't shrink. I was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that comes after a storm. By the time I reached my apartment, there were already 4 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Chloe, and 1 from Dad. I ignored all of them. The next morning, they doubled. By noon, tripled. My inbox filled with paragraphs disguised as concern. Family is family. Don't make this harder. You embarrassed your sister in front of everyone. Chloe cried all night. You owe us an explanation. I owed them nothing. That afternoon, I called Maya. She listened as I replayed the lunch, every word, every cut, every moment I refused to bleed. You didn't break, she said softly. You finally stopped bending. Her words steadied me more than she knew. Still, the pressure kept coming. Aunts, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years, everyone suddenly felt entitled to my guilt. Each message carried the same undertone. Fix this. Fix yourself. Make it easy for us. Late that night, I sat cross-legged on my living room rug with my laptop open, my journal beside me, my heart steady, my decision already made. I booked a luxury suite at the Enchantment Resort in Sedona for the exact weekend of the wedding. A room with Red Rock views and a sunrise hike included. Nearly $4,000 for silence, nature, and freedom. Worth every cent. Then I wrote the email. Short, clear, final. I will not be attending the wedding. This is not about weight, hair, dresses, or tradition. This is about respect, yours for me, and mine for myself. Please don't contact me about this again. I hit send. 5 seconds later, my phone buzzed violently. Calls, texts, outrage I didn't bother reading. I powered the phone off and slid it into a drawer. As the apartment went silent, a strange warmth settled in my chest. They thought rejecting the wedding was rebellion. But in truth, it was liberation. And what they didn't know, what none of them could possibly imagine, was that my absence would echo louder through that perfect wedding than any version of me they had ever allowed to exist. If you've ever sat at a family table and felt like the outsider, like the one expected to stay small so everyone else could shine, then you know why I walked away. And if any part of my story feels familiar, don't let it sit in silence. Tell me where you're watching from, share your own experience in the comments, and hit like and subscribe. Stories like this aren't just drama, they're lifelines for people who've spent years trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. This story isn't over.